Fancy seeing you here. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. This week, Canada hosted the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, and as chair, I focused on strengthening international partnerships with leading nations around the table to find areas of cooperation on shared priorities. À nouveau, le monde entier a pu voir la valeur de ce forum. De nombreuses discussions franches et ouvertes ont lieu entre les nations qui façonnent l'économie mondiale. Nous avons trouvé un accord pour bâtir des économies plus fortes en rendant le monde plus sécuritaire, en promouvant la sécurité énergétique et encourageant les partenariats de l'avenir. Nous avons quitté Kananaskis avec de nouvelles opportunités pour le Canada sur les minéraux critiques avec d'autres pays, sur l'intelligence artificielle, sur les chaînes d'approvisionnement, le commerce et bien plus encore. Now, Canadian leadership will be defined not just by the strength of our values, but also by the value of our strength. The world wants to do much more, and work much more closely with Canada, and we're ready. Now, on Monday morning, I, with colleagues, met with President Trump to discuss international priorities as part of the G7, but also to further negotiate a new economic and security partnership between Canada and the United States. And as we've said repeatedly, we'll take all the time we need to get the best deal for Canada, but no longer. And seeing progress that's been made, President Trump and I agreed to pursue negotiations towards a deal within the coming 30 days. We'll continue these negotiations, of course, in good faith. In parallel, we must reinforce our strength at home and safeguard Canadian workers and businesses from the unjust U.S. tariffs that exist at present. And that's why we're announcing that Canada will be introducing a series of countermeasures to protect Canadian steel and aluminum workers and producers. And there's several, and I'm going to list them. First, Canada will adjust its existing counter tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum products on the 21st of July, at the end of that 30-day period, in other words. We're going to adjust them to levels consistent with the progress that's made at that point on the broader trading arrangements with the United States. Secondly, we will implement reciprocal procurement rules, ensuring that only Canadian producers and producers from trading partners that provide Canada with tariff-free reciprocal access through trade agreements can compete for federal government procurement of steel and aluminum. Troisièmement, le gouvernement établira de nouveaux quotas tarifaires de 100% sur les niveaux d'importation de produits d'acier de 2024 en provenance de pays pour stabiliser le marché canadien et d'empêcher un détournement commercial dommageable suite aux actions prises par les États-Unis. Ce quota seront appliqués réactivement et seront réexaminés dans les 30 jours. Quatrièmement, le gouvernement adoptera des mesures tarifaires supplémentaires au cours des prochaines semaines pour s'attaquer aux risques associés à la surcapacité mondiale persistante et au commerce déloyal dans les secteurs de l'acier et de l'aluminium qui sont exacerbés par les mesures américaines. Les mesures canadiennes s'appliqueront selon le principe du pays de fond et de coulage pour l'acier et du pays de fusion et de moulage pour l'aluminium. The Government of Canada will also review its remission framework for automobiles to favor the use of Canadian steel and aluminum in Canadian-made products. And finally, we're creating two government stakeholder task forces, one for steel, one for aluminum, to monitor trade and market trends, and to better support government decision-making and workers going forward. Remind that the $10 billion large enterprise tariff loan facility remains open to help affected businesses access the liquidity they need and to return to financial resilience as the market stabilizes. In short, the government is responding to the impact of the unjust U.S. tariffs with multiple tools. We will review our response as the negotiations progress. I'll be meeting with the premiers of the provinces and to strengthen and build security and economic partnerships with reliable partners. And this week, in this House, the Parliament has the opportunity to pass the core of our domestic economic response, the One Canadian Economy Act, because together, we as Canadians can give ourselves far more than the Americans can ever take away. Steel and aluminum workers are on the front lines of this trade crisis. These are the workers who will help us build one strong Canadian economy, the strongest economy in the G7. Alors, nous les protégerons, ainsi que leurs familles, et nous le ferons avec urgence et détermination. Merci beaucoup, and now the ministers and I will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant commencer la période de questions. We'll start with the first question.
The Globe and Mail. Are you opposing anti-dumping tariffs because the U.S. asked you to as part of these negotiations over the 30 days?
The short answer, no. There was not a request from the United States, but it's a consequence of the U.S. actions. As you know, the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum are global tariffs. They're not targeted specifically at Canada, but they, of course, affect our steel industries and our workers. And one of the consequences of that effect, or prospective consequences, is that steel from other countries, from third countries, start to come into Canada if we don't protect our industries. So we're setting these quotas. It's a long word, tariff rate quotas, but a quota for the amount of steel that can come in from third countries to limit that amount, to stabilize the market. And to be clear, we will be reviewing the level of those tariff rate quotas as this progresses. It depends on what the United States does, first and foremost with Canada, whether we come to an agreement in the next 30 days, but also what they do with the rest of the world. Non, ce n'est pas une requête du gouvernement américain, c'est pour notre industrie. Mais le point c'est une réponse à l'impact global des actions des Américains. Parce qu'il y a le marché de l'acier et l'aluminium sont déstabilisés par les tarifs globaux des Américains et il y aura possiblement et probablement des retombées négatives ici au Canada. Alors avec les quotas, on protège nos marchés et nos travailleurs. Merci.
And will the government be rolling out any additional support for the industry beyond the emergency loans that you mentioned? For example, would the government ever consider investing directly in a steel producer?
Well, it's an important question, and I'll say the following. First is that we're united in working on all forms of support for the industry short-term. Tariff measures we're announcing today, liquidity as necessary, but also a necessary restructuring of demand and the industry that will happen almost irrespective of what happens between Canada and the United States because of the global impact of the new U.S. trade policy. So that starts with buying Canadian steel and aluminum for federal projects, working with the provinces to do the same, making sure that the enormous infrastructure bill that's about to happen in this country if we get the One Canadian Economy bill through Parliament, the impact of these nation-building projects, making sure that those are taking advantage of our industries. Same with autos. Same with the new defense spending that will be considerable over the years. And what we're working together is on those policies to encourage the consumption of Canadian steel and aluminum, but also we will be looking at how to finance the bridge of two industries that have been very oriented north-south, not exclusively, but very oriented north-south, to be oriented towards Canada first, and then globally with reliable partners. Thank you.
Next question.
That's great with global news. Are you willing to sign the security and economic agreement that you've been negotiating with Mr. Trump if any of the Trump's tariffs are still in place after that deal is signed?
We're willing to sign a security and economic or commercial agreement with the United States that's in Canada's best interest, and only that. So that's the negotiation. That there is still some room to travel, so to speak, before we get to that point. But we have a deadline in order to achieve that, and if it's in Canada's interest, we'll sign it. If it's not, we won't.
So you're willing to sign a deal with the Americans and still have some of the tariffs that Donald Trump has signed still in place?
Ça dépend. It's a negotiation right now. I was anticipating the en français. Sorry, but yeah, it's a negotiation. We start from a position which is clear in terms of the tremendous contribution of Canadian workers, Canadian companies, first and foremost to jobs and livelihoods here in Canada, but to the competitiveness of the American, for example, specifically in the auto sector, where steel is and aluminum are so tightly tied, and our auto companies are so tightly tied. We are part of the core that makes American automakers competitive. It is in the U.S. interest as well. They have to fully see that. Thank you. En français, j'ai oublié la question. C'était là dans un moment. Alors, on verra. C'est une négociation. C'est mieux pour les Américains et surtout pour le Canada, évidemment, d'avoir une libre-échange, une vraie libre-échange, surtout dans les secteurs de l'acier, l'aluminium et l'automobile. Mais c'est une négociation, on verra. Mais nous allons signer, en effet, seulement un accord dans l'intérêt des travailleurs canadiens.
Next question.
How often are you communicating with President Trump and to Mr. LeBlanc? What are your tasks during this next 30-day negotiating period?
Okay, so I'll answer
both, sir.
No. I think I would like to hear from Minister LeBlanc. The President and I communicate, I would say, relatively frequently on a range of issues. From our perspective, obviously, this is top of mind. But, Mr. LeBlanc.
So, thank you, Prime Minister. I'm having ongoing conversations with Secretary Lutnick. Ambassador Hillman and I met following the Prime Minister and the President's meeting in Kananaskis with Ambassador Greer and officials who were with the President in Kananaskis. We've agreed to have another meeting tomorrow. So I'm following up, as the Prime Minister said, conscious of the deadline that he and President Trump fixed. The fact that there's now a deadline set by the two leaders, I think, has focused the conversation. So I'm optimistic over the next 3.5 weeks that we can make some progress. And I'll be reporting to the Prime Minister as that progress unfolds.
Thank you. And for the Prime Minister, what are Canada's goals during these 30-day talks?
Well, I mean, the high level is the best result for Canadian workers and businesses, first thing. Secondly, for that to be the case, we need to stabilize the trading relationship with the United States. We need to have ready access to U.S. markets for Canadian companies and for Canadian companies, and not have our hands tied in terms of our dealings with the rest of the world. Because I'll go back to something I said at the start and heard in every single interaction in Kananaskis. The world wants to work with Canada. The world wants to work with Canada. Minister Joly was just in the aerospace, with the aerospace industry in France a few days ago. Minister Champagne elsewhere. People want to work with Canada. We have major delegations visiting here. And so access to the U.S. for our mutual benefit, but very much an ability to trade with the rest of the world, which we intend to take advantage of, regardless of the outcome of the discussions with the U.S.
Next question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. David Baxter with the Canadian Press. So earlier you were talking about the importance of getting C-5 passed. last time we were hearing that the way this bill is being handled is laying the table out for a potential Idle No More 2.0. Are you prepared for a potential summer of protests, and how do you properly address the concerns raised by a host of Indigenous organizations at this point?
I mean, the first thing is that at the heart of this legislation is Section 35 of our Constitution. At the heart is not just respect for, but full embrace of free, prior, and informed consent. It has to be seen as well in parallel with very major measures that this government is taking to not just support those partnerships, but also to finance equity ownership in these nation-building projects for Indigenous peoples, Indigenous groups, Indigenous right holders. That's the first point. The second is that this legislation is enabling legislation. It creates the possibility of these projects. Now, there's lots of suggestions of what the actual projects could be, but it creates the possibility, but a very clear process, which has at its heart consultation, full consultation with Indigenous peoples to define what is a nation-building project. And then, if something is one of those projects, then what are the conditions in order for that project to move forward, including participation, obviously, I would think, in almost every case, environmental, other conditions, and then only if those conditions are met would the project move forward. So consultation, cooperation, engagement, participation is at the heart of C-5, and that is how you build a nation, and that's very much how we've designed it, how we believe it, and that's how we'll be moving forward.
Yeah, and just on India, what's changed in the last 8 or 9 months or so where Canada is ready to have Indian diplomats back in the country, including a high commissioner? And did a Hardy thing the jar come up at all in your conversation with Prime Minister Modi?
Well, let me go back to a very basic level, because this is a basic, almost foundational, necessary first step for the relationship, which is to exchange high commissioners and re-begin effectively diplomatic service and consular service. There are very deep ongoing ties of people to people, not just certainly of Indo-Canadians, but of Canadians as a whole with India. We don't have a high commissioner in India right now. We're not serving Canadians in India right now because of where we are. I mean, the reciprocal would hold for the Indian government. So just having a basic level of engagement is, in many respects, a duty of the government. I'm glad that we came to that agreement understanding. That agreement understanding also is based on several things. The law enforcement cooperation, which Claire said, understanding of issues of transnational repression, which were discussed not just at the G7 but also in the discussions the Prime Minister and I had. Look, I'd never make it a policy to give a line-by-line transcript readout of exactly what's said in a meeting, and I'm not about to start now.
Next question.
Prime Minister, good afternoon. Greg Quinn with Market News. I have a document showing some of the fiscal plans for this year.
Look at that. It looks like it's written on a napkin, Greg.
I don't know whose napkin it is. It said there's a contingency borrowing authority.
Is that the opposition's fiscal plan?
No, it's finances. It says there's a contingency or an option to borrow 95.
What kind of shop are you running? Sorry, Greg. I'm sorry. I respect. Yeah.
Just the executive summary. That's the executive
Okay, start again. You have a document. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But treat it with.
It outlines fiscal plans for this year, and it mentions an option to borrow up to $95 billion, excuse me, to cover geopolitical risk. You know, we're in the middle of some delicate trade talks with the U.S. I just wondered, in these circumstances, why do we need to set aside that amount of money to get through this?
Well, in all seriousness, obviously, by my response to your document, I haven't seen what you're talking about, so you're asking me to comment on something I haven't seen, full stop. Then I'm going to tell you something you already know, which is that any responsible government makes contingency plans. The world is in a trade war. The world's in a trade war that is running a risk of a global recession. And if I would note, and you don't need to take it from me, I'll quote the chair of the Federal Reserve, this week, who highlighted the risks of stagflation, in other words, inflation. In their judgment, Federal Reserves, what do they know? But this is what they think, that inflation is going up and growth is going to slow in the United States. The world's in the middle of a trade war and several wars, actual wars, including wars that can have quite significant implication for commodity prices, global growth, aside from the human cost that comes with them. Any responsible government, any responsible organization makes contingency plans for those circumstances.
Second, I'd like to turn to talk of making Canada an energy superpower.
Yep.
Danielle Smith has said, there could be a referendum next year, and the legislation around that is 170,000 people can put that on the ballot. Brian Mulroney once perhaps referred to rolling the dice with the future of Canada. Is it appropriate for that few people to put the fate of a G7 nation in the balance?
I see what you're trying to do, the province of Alberta, provinces make determinations on the rules governing referenda, voter plebiscites, other factors, and they can make determination on how they come into force. Determinations on broader issues of referenda on federal level, including supported by Supreme Court decisions, are governed by the Clarity. I will refer to the Clarity Act. But look, what we're interested in, what Canada's new government is interested in, what Parliament, I think most parliamentarians are interested in, is building this country, not breaking it apart. It's working together, working with Indigenous peoples, working with provinces, working with labor, working with business. We have many, we have this threat, this realizing from the U.S. that regardless of what outcome we get, it matters what agreement we get, but it's changing the world of trade. It is changing the outlook for the global economy in not just immediate, but the medium term. We have to take more responsibility ourselves to move forward, which is what we're doing with the One Canadian Economy Act and what's underneath it, which very much includes, and I'll finish on this, very much includes cooperation with the province of Alberta, the province of Saskatchewan, province of British Columbia, all the provinces and territories, Indigenous people, for these nation-building projects. And we're having constructive, I would say, very constructive discussions with Premier Smith and stakeholders in Alberta specifically, and we intend to convert those to actual projects, investment, jobs, and a brighter future for the country.
We'll have time for one last question. Dernière question.
Minister Michael Couture with CTV News. The Hope Commission and now the CSIS report says that India is one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage in Canada. I know you don't want to give a line-by-line conversation about what you had with Prime Minister Modi, but given how this does affect Canadians very personally, what did you say to Prime Minister Modi about it, and did you tell him to stop it?
We've made our position very clear, including recently, that we will not tolerate transnational repression in Canada from any source, geographic or institutional. Nous sommes absolument clairs que c'est pas acceptable du tout d'avoir de l'ingérence étrangère ici au Canada, n'importe quel pays, n'importe quelle institution.
Ask you about the conflict in the Middle East and whether or not you support the U.S. directly striking Iran in the goal of diminishing their nuclear capacity.
Let me say the following, which is that the prospect, in any sense of that word, of Iran having a nuclear weapon is fundamentally destabilizing to peace in the Middle East and broader peace and stability in the world. We support, at first point. Secondly, we absolutely support and stand by Israel and in its right to defend itself and to protect itself. We join others in looking for a resolution of this crisis that ensures that there is not a nuclear weapon or nuclear capacity in Iran, that ensures the safety and stability of all countries, Israel included, in the region, and that leads to broader peace or prospect of broader peace in the Middle East. And I'll draw attention to the G7 statement agreed by all G7 leaders that the resolution of this crisis should be accompanied by a ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you very much.
Merci, c'est ce qui met fin à la conférence de presse. This puts an end to our press conference. Thank you.
En français? Non, c'est seulement en traduction. C'est seulement en traduction.
On va faire la traduction en français, mais on doit quitter pour Q&A.
Oui,
On doit quitter pour la période de questions. Merci.
C'est fait.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne journée.
As a representative of a riding with
be permitted to devolve into wanton destruction. The citizens of Iran are in a particularly precarious spot. They have endured decade upon decade of brutal repression, and the overwhelming majority detest the theocratic regime in Tehran. Yet, they are caught in the crossfires of a war they are neither responsible for and which is not of their making. Neither is the Iranian regime making any provisions for their safety. That is why Canada should call on all parties to this dispute to exercise maximum restraint and also fully embrace the recently announced diplomatic initiative of the Foreign Ministry.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
Nearly a century in a minute. I rise today with a heavy yet grateful heart to honor my Didu, Mrs. Sati Rani Kaur, who passed away peacefully at 94 on January 11th in Kolkata. Predeceased by my Dadu, Mr. S.C. Kaur, she leaves behind 3 daughters, 3 sons-in-law, 3 grandchildren, including me, and 3 great-grandchildren. She was my last surviving grandparent, now with my father's parents, Harindra Lal Majumdar and Shobhya Majumdar. Didu's life was a tapestry woven through 94 years across British India and through decades of partition, liberation, and decolonization. Raised in Bangladesh, she carried the resilience of a land shaped by struggle and independence. A Sanskrit scholar and educator, she taught students, including my father, in Rangoon before the turbulence of Burma's military junta, in Delhi amid India's fight for freedom, and later in Kolkata, a city pulsing with cultural rebirth. Her strong will and Hindu heart defined her. She lived life on her own terms. Om Shanti.
The Honourable Member for Oakville West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize one of Oakville's most anticipated community events, the Oakville Family Rib Fest, starting today. This annual celebration is made possible thanks to the tireless efforts of Oakville Lions Club and the Rotary Club of Oakville Trafalgar. Through the dedication of exceptional volunteers, Rib Fest not only brings the community together, but also raises critical funds to support our local charities. I also want to take a moment to recognize the incredible people of Oakville. Their generosity and the community spirit are what makes events like Rib Fest so successful year after year. Additionally, tomorrow, I'm proud to be welcoming 70 bright students from Eastview Public School in my riding of Oakville West. These young leaders are the future of our country, and I look forward to sharing with them the important work we do here on behalf of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to wish everyone a happy Canada Day.
Members may wish to put in their earpieces. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Northwest.
Nigan naskamao no tawinan simantu, gia ganigan apistaman o mahwaskayagan.
The interpreter would like to note there is no English interpreter able to interpret from Cree right now.
Egwa wapigio natsigasun maskegsi egwa meskuchi waskayagan oche. Anots kinote kaka skumtago go paskopism nistanao peaksap kaki me nehiao gisagao. National Indigenous Peoples Day is a day of celebration for many things, including leaders who have built bridges between Canadians and First Peoples. I acknowledge 2 teachers of mine, Ogimao Nota Willie Littlechild from Musqueam, a former Conservative Member of Parliament, our International Chief and Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner, and Victor Hull from Anix-Capone, a public servant with decades of experience from Indigenous Services Canada. It is often those humble, hardworking public servants that make the difference in the mission towards honoring treaty, Victor being one of them. So from this side of the House, we wish all those trailblazers and all peoples a good Saturday, this Saturday, National Indigenous Peoples Day. Hi, hi, kinaskum tinawal.
The Honourable Member for La Salle, Aymar Verdun. Mr. Speaker, as we approach the end of the parliamentary session and summer sets in, I invite all Canadians to celebrate Verdun's 150th anniversary. Our community has put together an exceptional program of events, including exhibition, workshops, and outdoor concerts featuring artists such as Clay and Friends and the Orchestre Métropolitain. Each event reflects the vibrant spirit of Verdun. I'm also very pleased to announce that our constituency office will be moving in August to Wellington Street, recently voted the coolest street in the world by Time Out magazine, a street that is 100% pedestrian during the summer season. And finally, I'd like to thank Marie-André Mauger, the mayor of Verdun, who is wrapping up 12 years of public service in our community. Her commitment will leave a green, human, and lasting mark on our neighborhood. Happy 150th anniversary to Verdun, and have a happy summer, everyone.
Member for Vaughan Woodbridge. Mr. Speaker, in 1955, a 22-year-old Italian man from Treviso, Italy, got on a boat and took that courageous trip across the Atlantic Ocean to Canada. He ended up settling in Woodbridge, Ontario. When he arrived, he worked in a mushroom farm, then a steel factory, and then started a business. He lived the Canadian dream. That man was my grandfather, Nico Guglielmin, who passed away last year at the beautiful age of 95. My grandfather truly was the inspiration in my life. He was strong and strict, full of decency and integrity, and he was also kind and understanding. He never lost his temper, no one ever saw him sweat, and he was accomplished and qualified. They say you can judge a person by what people say about them when they're gone. Well, I say Nico Guglielmin was a great man. He was a risk-taker who achieved his dreams, an entrepreneur of incredible accomplishment, and a gentleman who carried himself throughout his life with dignity and honor. So happy Italian Heritage Month to the residents of Vaughan Woodbridge and all Italian Canadians like my grandfather Nico.
The Honourable Member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, our government is taking a strong, targeted action to support the people of Ukraine and to hold Russia accountable for its ongoing war of aggression. In one of our most significant sanctions packages since the invasion began in 2022, we are imposing new sanctions on 77 individuals and 39 entities, restricting trade on nearly 1,000 items, including those linked to chemical weapons, advanced technologies, and critical industrial goods. We're also expanding our crackdown on Russia's shadow fleet by listing over 200 additional vessels, now totaling more than 300, and banning all related services to disrupt Russia's global shipping networks. Sanctions also target key financial institutions, energy companies, and individuals enabling Russia's military and disinformation efforts. Canada stands firmly with the people of Ukraine, as well as all of those in the G7, whose courage and resilience continue to
The Honourable Member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Mr. Speaker, as members rose and gave their first speeches in this place, we thanked our families and our volunteers for helping us get here. But now as we carry out our legislative agenda, we rely on others to help us carry out our work, but they don't often get the recognition that they deserve. They are our staff. On June the 30th, Sherry Elliott will retire after nearly 20 years of tireless service to our Conservative team. She began her journey in 2004 with Merv Tweed, member for Brandon-Souris, and went on to serve the Honourable Vic Taves, the Honourable Rob Nicholson, the Honourable Candice Bergen, as well as Damien Kirk, and I can say his name today, and myself. At last night's gathering, it showed that Sherry has been much more than a staffer. She has been a mentor, a friend, and a trusted guide to many across the Hill. So for 15 years, she also organized Party Under the Stars, a nonpartisan fundraiser supporting veterans, first responders through post-traumatic wellness programs. Sherry, to you, thank you from me and Canada.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, on June 24th, 1975, Gilles Vigneault, the wonderful poet from Natashquan, took advantage of our national holiday, St. John Baptiste Day, to give Quebecers a priceless treasure, a song that would belong to an entire people. And for 50 years, around the dinner table or at a restaurant with family and friends, when it's someone's birthday, we all sing along to Gilles Vigneault's lyrics, adapting them to the name of the person being celebrated. Nowhere else in the world can you hear such an extraordinary song written to celebrate Quebec and which now celebrates every Quebecer. And these lyrics, Mr. Speaker, are beautifully poetic and touch the heart. These lyrics say, "The time we take to say I love you is the only time we have left at the end of our days. The wishes we make, the flowers we sow, each of us reaps within ourselves in the beautiful garden of the time that passes. People of the country, it is your turn to let yourself speak of love."
The honourable member for London Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour the extraordinary life of Beth Hundy, who passed away at the age of 40 after a courageous battle with cancer this past April. She was wife to Seneca and the stepmother to Percy, cherished daughter of Rick and the late Jane Hundy, sister of Eric and Tim and their wives Julie and Yvonne, and an aunt who was adored by nieces and nephews. Incredibly bright, she finished her PhD in geography from Western University in 2014. She later served as a professor at Western and was widely respected on campus and throughout Canada, in fact, for the innovations that she made, and specifically in the area of curriculum development. A passionate advocate for fighting climate change, Mr. Speaker, as well. Beth was loved, she was respected, she was admired. May she rest in peace. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to applaud the Westminster Working Group, a dedicated group of neighbours in London Fanshawe who volunteers have, for years, brought our community together to make it even better. This is through hosting family-friendly events, including free winter snowshoe rentals at Westminster Ponds, summer movies and yoga at Westminster Optimist Park, and their Victoria Day weekend fireworks display at Nicholas Wilson Park. The Victoria Day weekend fireworks event has drawn over 1,000 Londoners. Their commitment to creating accessible, family-friendly events fills our city with fun and fosters a neighborly bond. I would like to extend a warm invitation to everyone in this community and beyond throughout London to enjoy these wonderful activities. Thank you again to the Westminster Working Group.
Well done. The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, it was a true honor to lead a delegation of Canadian parliamentarians to Dayton, Ohio for the spring session of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, where parliamentarians from all NATO countries assembled for discussions. Dayton was selected to honor the 30th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Accords, which marked the end of the Bosnian War. Given the changing geopolitical situation and Canada's strong commitment to secure and defend our borders, the vital role that NATO plays cannot be understated. The Dayton session provided an excellent opportunity for NATO parliamentarians to reaffirm our support for Ukraine, that we must support them until they win, and to lend our voice to creating a more resilient NATO. I'm proud that Canada announced increased defense spending to 2% of our GDP by the end of this year. This means an additional $9 billion of investment in our Canadian armed forces. We made a commitment to Canadians to protect our sovereignty and to defend our country, and we will do so both today and for generations to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. She does not yet know the meaning of the word courage, and she doesn't yet know what determination is, but she embodies it. She cannot understand what resilience is, but she lives it. She does not yet know what it means to keep her cool, but she's an example of it. Mr. Speaker, these words now have a name, Claire Bell, who is 3 years of age. Today, all Canadians join me and my colleagues in thanking the hundreds of police officers and volunteers who have done a tremendous job. Claire, I hope you can continue your childhood surrounded by love, safety, and kindness. May you have dreams and may you achieve them, because with your strength, your courage, your determination, and your resilience, At the ripe age of 3, you've already proven that you're an exceptional person. Never forget that, never doubt it, and remember that a whole country was behind you. The Honourable Member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to talk about an inspiring 11-year-old boy from Mont-Saint-Bruno. His name's Jacob. I'm very pleased to welcome here to Parliament Hill along with his father. The Fête du Vieux Village, held a few weeks ago in Saint-Julie, was Jacob's idea. He wanted to create a space where young people in Saint-Julie could stand out, share their talents, and Jacob worked hard to make this project a reality, demonstrating remarkable leadership. But what touches me the most are his dreams for other young people. As he said, I would like to help young people my age develop their own entrepreneurial projects by offering them guidance. At the Fête du Vieux Village, there's a special space, a table dedicated to them at the public market, allowing them to proudly present and sell their products. They represent the future, a future built on solidarity, creativity, and commitment. I congratulate him wholeheartedly. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for York Centre.
Speaker, in the violent revolution of 1979, the barbaric Ayatollahs took over the prosperous and peaceful nation of Iran. They oppressed the great Persian people for almost 50 years. They murdered countless Jews and recently 58 Canadians. They're the world's largest state sponsor of terror. The difference is simple. If given a chance, Iran would kill 10 million Israelis. But if it were up to Israel, the regime would fall and the new government would not beat women or hang gays. On June 13th, the State of Israel had lawfully defended itself and gave a gift to the world by ensuring that the psychos in Tehran do not get a nuclear weapon. Now is the time for the great Persian people to reclaim their country peacefully. Let the voices of the people rise. Do not be afraid, Persian friends. Let's work and pray for a free Iran.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Discovery Centre, a pillar of our Halifax community, which has evolved into a flagship Canadian export and global success. The Discovery Centre model, designed and engineered in Halifax, provides an accessible way for youth and community members to experience science and technology up close through immersive Canadian-made exhibits. Under the leadership of Dov Berkovici and his incredible team, this initiative is now scaling globally, with 8 new centres underway in Brazil and South America and a national science centre in Sri Lanka. When complete, these new facilities will generate tens of millions in annual revenue and support new Canadian jobs. This is a clear example of trade diversification through innovation and a bold reminder of the value we create when Canadians lead with impact. Mr. Speaker, the Discovery Centre isn't just exporting exhibits, they're exporting Canadian vision, values, and talent in what is sure to be the first chapter in a much bigger story.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
This Prime Minister is continuing the Trudeau tradition of breaking his promises and hiding from accountability. He refuses to table a spring budget while massively increasing government spending and keeping the parliamentary budgeting officer in the dark. And just like Trudeau, this guy can't even get a tax cut right. He promised $800, yet the average Canadian will only save $90 this year. Not even enough to get a hot chocolate from Tim Hortons weekly. So did this Prime Minister mislead Canadians during the election? Is he misleading them now, or both?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I recognize the job of Prime Minister comes with many responsibilities. I didn't know addition and division were one of them. The parliamentary budget officer refers to the reductions for all Canadians. The vote that the members opposite supported this government on delivers a tax cut for the 22 million Canadians who pay taxes and provide this country for.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Coming from a guy that doesn't even do his own grocery shopping. He's bragging about a $90 tax cut this year when his government's policies raised the cost of groceries $800. He's broken all of his promises, spending, tax cuts, high-priced consultants, and he's all elbows down on the U.S. And while he's begging on his knees in front of Trump, Canadians have high grocery prices, unaffordable homes, and rising crime. But wait, everyone should be grateful for a $90 tax cut this year. Why doesn't he just reverse his disastrous policies, drop a spring budget, and actually lower taxes for Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, a tax cut is a cut for those who pay taxes. 22 million Canadians pay taxes in this country. 86% of that tax cut goes to those in the first two tax brackets. When you have a two-earner family, the maximum tax cut is $840 a year. The members opposite think it's irrelevant. It's relevant for Canadians. It's building this economy. We're glad they voted for it. They just happen to have forgotten now.
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Last night we learned that the Prime Minister has an entire department of bureaucrats trying to manage his conflicts of interest, but they can't even tell us if the Prime Minister has set up a conflict of interest screen. And so that means that the former chairman of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm is sitting at the cabinet table and could be taking decisions that personally improve his financial standing. He's been Prime Minister for 100 days, but he's still jumping through these ethical loopholes. So why won't the Prime Minister stop hiding the truth from Canadians and come clean? What are your conflicts of interest?
I would just remind the member to direct his question through the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the member opposite, I'm proud of having experience in the private sector. I'm proud of having experience helping to build this country. I'm proud of having filed all my requirements in advance before required, including a screen for the conflict of interest.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, unlike the Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'm proud to have served our country in the Canadian Armed Forces in uniform. This Prime Minister seems to do whatever he thinks he can get away with. He voted for the Liberals' ban on gas-powered cars while Brookfield is heavily invested in the EV supply chain. We know that he used offshore tax havens in the Caribbean to avoid paying Canadian taxes. His own department won't even say if he set up conflicts of interest screens. So instead of maligning people who serve the country in uniform, why doesn't he stand up and come clean about his conflicts of interest?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, sorry. Battlefield promotion there. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud as Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister promised to lower taxes for family. Between the tariff crisis and C-5, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there's a direct link between the C-5 and the steel and aluminum industry. Now, there's a crisis because of the trade war with the U.S. C-5 will enable us to we will create demand for steel and aluminum, for Canadian steel and aluminum, in order to build major infrastructure projects in Quebec and all across Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The government considers it a real feat to have shortened the assessment period to 2 years, and this is before shovels break ground. So before a project can even be started. For example, Trans Mountain, it took 12 years. So these projects take years. The trade war was an urgency. These measures will not help the aluminum industry for 10 or 12 years. In the meantime, what's the solution? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's an example. That's why we need to streamline the process. The process takes too long for major projects. And we have confidence that we will produce steel and aluminum, good jobs here in Canada, starting this summer. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. When it comes to managing the trade war and the tariffs, let's remember that after making a whole bunch of compromises around the border, around defense, and there's lots of things that we still don't know the details of, the Prime Minister's strategy was supposed to, before the G7, have a deal with Donald Trump because it was urgent. What he's presenting now is bills that have a lot more to do with oil than aluminum. And is the Prime Minister admitting that his strategy was a failure? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the Prime Minister, and this is a pretty good rebuttal.
Trade between Canada and the U.S.
Trade in barbs.
Is over 90% of our exports. And they're tariff-free. That's a success. We are the only country in the world with that amount of success in our trade with the U.S. But we're not satisfied. We're not going to stop there. We have to find new markets. We have to make arrangements, fair arrangements with the Americans for steel, aluminum, and auto.
Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, we know the Prime Minister doesn't buy his own groceries, but most families do. And what they're seeing at the grocery store is ever-increasing food prices. According to Canada's fiscal watchdog, the Liberals' newest broken promise is on their tax cut, with the average Canadian saving only $90 this year, well below the $825 promised. This isn't even enough for a week's groceries. Did the Prime Minister mislead Canadians during the election? Is he misleading them now? Or both?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, it's a little bit rich for the opposition to be talking about leaders who don't buy groceries while they have a leader who's in subsidized housing, not buying groceries. However,
groceries and stored away?
This government is laser focused on making sure that Canadians have what they need. As we know, actually, poverty rates have been going down since 2015, and that's because of our investment in Canadians through programs like dental care, affordable child care, and the Canada Child Benefit. Mr. Speaker, we will build the strongest economy in the G7.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is a broken record of broken promises, and the Prime Minister said, judge me by the price at the grocery store, and that he's the man with the plan. Well, he's failing. Just since the start of this year, beef up 34%, oranges up 26%, apples up 18%, and baby formula up 9%. So, this is making it harder for families trying to put nutritious food on the table. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and table a budget that actually cuts taxes and reverse his inflationary policies? Wow.
The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government was just elected by Canadians to deliver. We are cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We are permanently cutting the carbon tax. We are cutting taxes for first-time homebuyers. Mr. Speaker, our focus is on building the strongest economy in the G7. I ask the party and members' offices to join us. Get on board. Thank you.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Well, old habits die hard, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister promised to cut consulting fees, but is now raising them by 37% to a record-smashing $26 billion this year. That's $1,400 for every Canadian household. And he's doing it, knowing that Canadians have not received value for money from these Liberal insiders. Why is this Prime Minister breaking his promise and increasing spending on consultants?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we are reducing the use of external consultants while making sure that our public service has the tools and the expertise to deliver on the essential missions it has for Canadians. And I'm very proud to have been elected on a mandate to make government more efficient so that we can invest more in defense, invest more in innovation, invest more in the supports that Canadians need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
More broken promises with this Prime Minister. Broken promises on spending, tax cuts, defense, on elbows up with the U.S., and now on consultants, while offering Canadians a meager $90 tax cut this year. He's not getting the money back from GC Strategies and is paying yet another consultant to update websites for an undisclosed fee. Wow. Billions for consultants, peanuts for Canadians. Why is this Prime Minister giving consultants so much and Canadians so little?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
The Prime Minister announced a $9.3 billion investment in Canada's defence, which means we will achieve NATO's 2% target this fiscal year. This is not only an investment in our armed forces, but also an investment in good-paying jobs. The member knows this in Canadian innovation and in economic growth. Our generational investment is strengthening Canada's role as a strong, reliable international partner in NATO, while rebuilding and rearming our terrific Canadian armed forces right here at home.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Even the government's own fiscal watchdog says he's in the dark on this government's financial plans. He wouldn't even comment on whether the finances are sustainable. In the dark on how they're going to pay for nearly $500 billion. It's not enough to say, oh, we have a plan, and not know how you're going to pay for it. Perhaps they don't want their broken promises and ballooning deficits to come to light. There is no private sector discipline here, only secrecy, broken promises, and no budget. What exactly are they afraid Canadians will find in the numbers?
The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last time I checked, I think we were elected on a bold agenda of change. To cut taxes, to fight against illegal terrorists, to bring this country together and build one strong economy. But, Mr. Speaker, the rhetoric I hear across, it's the same old politics the former member Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives peddled for 2 decades. In the ballot box, just like business, if you don't deliver after 2 decades, you lose your job. He lost his job, Mr. Speaker. We have our jobs. We are elected. We are here to build the strongest, most resilient.
Yeah, they're pretty digging into that one. He's going to be re-elected as soon as that by-election comes
Mr.
out.
Speaker, the Liberals promised Canadians tax cuts of $825 a year. The PBO confirmed this was yet another broken promise. The average Canadian will save just $90 this year, $7 a month. And for low-income seniors, it's even worse, just $50 a year or $4 a month. It's not even enough for a cup of coffee. Did the Prime Minister mislead Canadians during the election campaign? Is he still misleading them today, or is it both? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's fascinating to hear that question coming from a Conservative who voted against the Canada Child Benefit, who voted against dental care, who voted against thousands of daycare spots for Quebecers. Now we have this tax cut that's important for 22 million Canadians. I'm very proud of it. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamekw, Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Prime Minister continues to break promises on taxes, spending, consultants, our relations with the U.S., and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, Canadians are paying more and more at the grocery store. The price of beef has gone up 34%, oranges 26%, apples 18%, and even baby formula is almost 10% more. Enough with the big talk that ends in broken promises. Will the Prime Minister finally table a real budget, cut taxes, and reverse his inflationary policies? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, this is the first bill we've passed. It cuts taxes for 22 million Canadians. It will have a direct impact for millions of Canadians all across the country with an $825 tax cut for families. We're very proud of this. This is exactly why we were elected, and that's precisely what we're delivering. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, did you know who's happy about C-5 apart from the Conservatives and the oil patch? Brookfield. The former firm of the Prime Minister is benefiting. They have a company that owns a nuclear reactor. They also own natural gas processing plants. C-5 is helpful there too. They also own pipelines and oil sands. C-5 is there for that too. And C-5 is there. The Liberals are using closure in order to please Brookfield shareholders, including the Prime Minister himself. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you who's proud of C-5. It's aluminum workers in Quebec who elected more than 44 Quebec Liberal MPs. It's steel workers, too, in Ontario who are affected by this trade war with the U.S. So instead of pointing at us, the Bloc should be honest and help us so that we can come up with a solution to this trade war. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. The Minister says that she's protecting workers, but C-5 doesn't do that. No one would be asking these questions if the Prime Minister didn't have this involvement with Brookfield. The Prime Minister himself stands to gain from C-5. This bill should be studied in depth. The Prime Minister should be among the first who support proper committee study of this. The Prime Minister should be the first person fighting any appearance of conflict of interest. Will he stand up and do that? The Honourable Government House Leader. I understand why the Bloc doesn't want to build a single strong Canadian economy. But I have more of a hard time understanding why the Bloc is opposed to major projects that Quebecers have dreamt of, like hydroelectricity, like infrastructure, like uniting this country to create job opportunities. Instead of insulting, baseless insults, they should get on board and build an economy together to give Quebecers opportunities.
For Regina Louvain. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canada's fiscal watchdog confirms another broken Liberal promise, this time on their tax cut. On the campaign trail, this Prime Minister promised Canadians an $800 income tax cut. But the Parliamentary Budget Officer just confirmed the average Canadian will save $15 a month, and low-income seniors will only save $10 a month, which won't buy a gallon of milk from the Lumsden Co-op. My question is, why did the Prime Minister mislead Canadians in the last election?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that member of Parliament, and we thank him for it, and his entire caucus colleagues voted for the exact tax cut that we committed to Canadians by July 1st, so that on July 1st, in every pay stub in Canada, everyone who pays income tax will have a reduction from 15% to 14%. In the first tax bracket, that will put up to $840 in the pockets of Canadian families. Happy Canada Day. We are delivering for Canadians.
The honourable member for Regina Luban.
Well, sad but true, Canadians are getting used to them being misled by that Liberal in particular, Mr. Speaker. On to another Liberal failure. A damning new report from the Liberals' own housing agency has declared the death of housing affordability in our country. They said Canada needs to double housing construction to restore affordability, but the Liberals' record is dismal. Housing starts in Vancouver, down 10%. Toronto, down 58%. Guelph, down 78%. Hamilton, down 50%. London, down 72%. Simple question, when will this housing minister stop buying investment properties and stop building homes for Canadians?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll caution the member opposite. He's leaving out all of the Canadian communities that are increasing their housing starts right now.
That's true.
Housing starts across Canada are near record levels.
That's right.
That's good news to celebrate, but it's just a start for us. Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected the party that's running to double housing construction in Canada.
Right.
We hope you'll support us on that.
Yes.
If they double it, it'll be 12 years.
A reminder to direct his comments, the minister direct his comments through the chair. The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, a damning report by the government's own housing agency revealed Canada needs to double housing construction in 10 years to restore affordability. In the last 10 years, housing starts are down over 10% in Vancouver, down 50% in Hamilton, down over 58% in Toronto, and down a whopping 78% in Guelph. Wow. This government's record on building bureaucracy instead of homes has failed young Canadians. When will the Liberals admit they've killed the dream of home ownership in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Housing. Overbuilding, so it's like cheap housing for anyone in China.
Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused on doubling housing construction across Canada.
10 years, 14
And I'm
years.
encouraged to hear the members opposite newfound concerns about housing construction and affordability. Particularly given they voted against every significant housing program in the last few decades.
It's true.
Mr. Speaker, our hope now is that they will support us to double construction and vote for affordable housing in Canada.
The honourable member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're coming out of an election campaign where the Liberals were promising the moon to get elected, but their hypocrisy is catching up with them. They were going around with a commitment to give $800 back to Canadians. Today we're learning from the Parliamentary Budget Officer the truth. Honest citizens have been had. Instead of the $800 promised by the Liberals, are going to get $90 a year. This Prime Minister misled Canadians. Why did he do that? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, well, it's getting ridiculous over there because the member knows very well, or at least he voted for a bill that is going to be lowering taxes for all Canadians, for the 22 million people who, after July 1st, are going to get a tax cut. They're going to see in their paycheck a reduction in the tax paid in the 15% to 40% bracket. And that is going to save them up to $840 for a Canadian family. That's what we committed to do, and that's what we've done. The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Well, I have something to say to my colleague. We, the Conservatives, like Canadians, we were had. They lied, Mr. Speaker. So I would invite Mr. Speaker of this Liberal government. We're getting close to the line here, and I know that the honourable member is a good debater. He doesn't need to go over that line, so he can please continue. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to say that the Liberals did not tell the truth. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government said one thing during the election, and now they're doing something completely different. Already, after just 2 months, the Liberals have broken their promise to cut spending, to cut taxes, their promises on consultants, on defense. They've broken their relationship with the United States. These are facts, and even the parliamentary budget officer says that the Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's incredible that question.
I have
2 months
to do
ago,
it.
when they had their opportunity to present a plan to Canadians,
pause it too.
when they presented their so-called costed platform, there was one.
I shouldn't do it, but okay. Here we go.
A reminder to direct his comments, the minister direct his comments through the chair. The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Check out MP
Mr.
Jolie.
Speaker, a damning report by the government's own housing agency revealed Canada needs to double housing construction in 10 years to restore affordability. In the last...
Mr. Speaker, please allow me to say that the Liberals did not tell the truth. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government said one thing during the election, and now they're doing something completely different. Already, after just 2 months, the Liberals have broken their promise to cut spending, to cut taxes, their promises on consultants, on defense. They've broken their relationship with the United States. These are facts, and even the parliamentary budget officer says that the Honourable...
Here we go. MP Jolie's handed him some... It looks like a text conversation that she's having with someone, and now she's scratching her eye as Carney, and remember, in the corner here, I better make sure that you guys can see it. I'm sorry for yelling. Okay, so yeah, he's in the corner. He's looking at it. What is he looking at? What does she... And she looks a little bit like concerned.
Minister...
Oh, no, she wasn't itching her eyes. She was putting hair out of her eye. Okay, maybe I'm overreading this because it's fun. Yeah, no. And we're trying to build a drum. And look at LeBlanc. LeBlanc is right into... I love the pause moments because it shows you, like, a snapshot in time. LeBlanc is giving him a blast of verbal, not niceties, most likely, because he's that guy. I like him. He's a really nice guy with that smile, but I would not want to get into a private argument with him. You know, you come out looking like a cue ball. And then we got MP Freeland. What does she do? She's, of course, writing things down for later, or writing probably evil spells or something. And then we got over the minister for the canoe guy from he's also got something going on in his hands. I don't know, what is it? Is it a chocolate bar? Is it a note? I don't know. We another guy a couple down from him. Is that Fragascatos? I don't think so. Right into his cell phone. And then we go to the conservative side. MP Thomas, who she's seen something. Something's going on. What the hell did I see? And then Gerard Deltal. He's probably taking the verbal lashing from MP LeBlanc, and he's like, "Oh, give me a break, please." I love it. Whereas Scheer is yelling at the speaker or something, speaking. Landsman, she's into her phone. The phone thing is going on, and she's probably on one of the channels that are streaming it, and she's writing some blasphemies or something, just to make it fun. Okay, so anyway, I did the pause of let's. I believe they're all trying. They're all trying. So, like, have fun with it. The idea that we should hate them and throw pebbles at them. Actually, look at all the a lot of the conservative side, as I noticed on the bench, they are right into their phones. They are very diligently into the phones. Someone's going to have to take them away. I believe that MP Jolie had something. Who knows? Something like a text message with someone. It's better to have fun and laugh and be jovial. I like the Rick Mercer way better. You know, you got that smile, that silly smile, instead of anger. You know. Okay, there's my silly pieces. Now let's see, Jolie. We're gonna pause.
Government transformation.
He looks concerned. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's incredible, that question, when we know that 2 months ago, when they had their opportunity to present a plan to Canadians, when they presented their so-called costed platform, there was one number that was criticized by, well, there were 17 pictures of their leader in that so-called costed plan. That was the only real number in that plan. And our plan is going to have a positive impact in his riding and my riding, everywhere in Quebec, everywhere in the country.
MP Jolie's smiling now.
Dangerous and uncertain place. From rising geopolitical tension and economic instability to the impacts of climate change and conflict. Yet, Canadians can be confident that their government is putting their safety, security, and prosperity first. By working closely with our allies and defending the values that matters to us, can the Minister of Foreign Affairs update the House on Canada's engagement at the G7 and how we are working with partners to build a more secure and stable world?
Great question.
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Canada has just concluded hosting an extremely successful G7 summit in Alberta at Annapolis. The world is becoming more unpredictable, and the world needs Canada's leadership, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister and his colleagues signed joint statements on critical minerals, on energy security, on transnational crime, Mr. Speaker. The world needs more Canada. Canada's ready to lead. Vive le Canada!
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
The Liberals' catch-and-release policies are so bad that mayors and city councillors are preemptively writing letters to Crown Council begging them to keep the bad guys in jail. Mayor Rather of Williams Lake recently wrote, "We vehemently oppose Jacob Funk's release. The actions of this individual have put our residents and property at significant risk. When Jacob Funk is in jail, the crime rate goes down. When he is out, the crime rate goes up. Why does this Prime Minister keep putting the rights of criminals ahead of Canadians?"
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Speaker, we're making it tougher for violent criminals to get out on bail, imposing stricter sentences for repeat offenders. But let me be clear, there is nothing in the law stopping judges and JPs from denying bail. The current law is that people who are a risk to public safety or a flight risk should not be given bail. So, Mr. Speaker, what's really going on here? Reports are saying that judges are making decisions because the provinces aren't providing the space needed to hold criminals. It's time for the provinces to join us and step up.
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
It's always somebody else's fault 37 times. Jacob Funk has been arrested 37 times, and 37 times he's been released. Over 9 times in the past month. April 27th, assault with a weapon and uttering threats. May 27th, break and enter and disguising face. June 8th, assaulting a peace officer, resisting arrest and breach of release. June 12th, assault and uttering death threats. He's wreaking havoc on the citizens of Williams Lake, and this Prime Minister is letting him. When will he repeal his soft on crime policies and finally put victims' rights ahead of criminals?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we are on the same page. Repeat violent offenders should not be released. So let me be clear again. There is nothing stopping judges and JPs from denying bail. The current law states that people who are a risk to public safety or a flight risk should not be given bail. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's time for the provinces to step up. What is happening? Make sure the Crown prosecutors are well funded. Make sure there's space to hold these criminals. We're going to do our part. The provinces should do theirs.
Honourable member for Bruce Grey Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, crime has been rising in my riding since the Liberals formed government, and justice is too often delayed for victims. According to the latest Owen Sound Police Service's annual report, violent crimes are up 14.6%. My communities are worried. To make matters worse, more than 10% of the cases are now exceeding the Jordan limit, delaying justice further. When will this Liberal government reverse its soft on crime legislation and adopt...
Personally, I believe it's the one thing is that they say 25% of people are now on hard drugs, and these opiate things. It's a pendulum. Once you put someone on something that's like a dope, like a whatever, it reduces this. They swing in the other direction. Usually in the form of neuroticism. It's not necessarily violence, but according to studies, I don't know personally. I don't like Tylenol 3. They gave me Tylenol 3s when I hurt my muscle injury in my back, and I didn't take them. But so I don't know. But this is like from what I've read and what I've seen. I guess I worked in maintenance in a building, and there was issues, and it goes from this to that extreme, and there's been nothing almost done. I said 237 deaths a day. Okay, I was incorrect. Apparently, it's 23.7 deaths a day, which is still very high. It's like the leading cause of death, and if we can't get a hold of I don't think we can get all of them out of our system, but if we can't get the worst one that's been into our system, we're not really a country. You can't do anything else when they say 25%. So that's 1 out of every 4 people is on hard drugs. Of course, crime's going to go up. Everything else, productivity goes down when you're on these hard drugs, or when you're off them, whatever, you know what I mean? I just personally believe it's the number one issue in Canada, and it's stemmed with the housing crisis. When you lose hope, you lose this, and then so also it is also tied with lack of jobs that can buy, so people can save enough to do it. It's really it's the triple entente. They basically. All politicians have obfuscated their duty. They're more worried about saving this and saving that than actually worrying about the number 3 major problems for the working class. And it would take an international military-type effort to fix this. And none of them seem to be doing it. They're just going to do the back and forth for years. I personally think, learn a language.
A common sense plan to keep violent offenders behind bars and ensure victims and their families get the justice they deserve.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question, and I have good news to report. Canadians elected a new Liberal government in part on the promise to advance reforms that will stiffen bail proceedings and adopt more serious sentences for violent repeat offenders. In addition to the changes to the criminal code that the members should expect to see later this calendar year, we're making investments to give law enforcement the tools that they need to prevent crimes in the first place. I am willing to work with members on all sides of the aisle to advance these important reforms to help keep communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
This old cabinet minister hasn't answered the question, Mr. Speaker. Premiers, police organizations, and victims are pleading for tougher penalties for repeat violent offenders. Just last week, West Grey Police rearrested a repeat violent offender for failing to comply with a release order, and who was found in possession of fentanyl and prohibited weapons. The PM ran on a platform that included establishing a reverse onus for severe crimes and increasing penalties. Can the minister provide specific timelines as to when the government will implement these changes and reverse their soft on crime policies?
Mr. Speaker, when dangerous people who pose a threat to the public commit serious offenses, they should be treated with concomitant sentencing and bail decisions from the courts. We are going to be advancing reforms that we campaigned on in the fall. We intend to specifically change the bail rules as it pertains to home invasions, auto theft, and organized crime. We also will advance new sentences when it comes to violent repeat offenders, and again, those participating in organized crime. I hope rather than just resorting to rhetoric in the House of Commons, they will actually work across partisan lines to advance the kinds of reforms Canadians are calling for so we can help.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, it's like we're living in a Liberal rerun of Groundhog Day, where the same criminals get arrested, released, and reoffend on a loop. In Cambridge, 2 men wanted on warrants were just busted with weapons and suspected fentanyl, a drug that's killing Canadians every single day. This endless cycle isn't an accident. It's the result of Liberal-made soft-on-crime laws, a revolving door of justice that's a gift to repeat offenders. When will this Liberal government shut the door on their Groundhog Day and finally put violent criminals and drug kingpins behind bars for good?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Fentanyl has torn through communities and ripped apart families, Mr. Speaker. We're working to take down fentanyl trade and gangs that profit from it. We've listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code, and I'm working closely with Kevin Brosseau, Canada's fentanyl czar, to put a laser-sharp focus on dismantling these drug networks. We will shut down fentanyl production and put those profiting from it behind bars.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Violent crime continues to spiral out of control under these Liberals, devastating our families and our communities. In Brandon earlier this year, a 67-year-old man was beaten over the head with a baseball bat by a repeat offender out on bail, completely unprovoked. Weeks later, a woman was assaulted in an elevator by an individual out on bail facing similar previous charges. These are just 2 examples of far too many violent assaults by repeat offenders released to wander our streets. So when are these Liberals going to get serious, reject their soft-on-crime agenda, repeal Bil C-5 and 75, and put these criminals in jail, not out on bail?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, this new government's agenda is to be tough on crime. We're going to make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail, impose stricter sentences for repeat offenders, and when the topic of bail keeps coming up, Mr. Speaker, it is the job of provinces to administer the bail system. Right now, the law states that people who are a risk to public safety or a flight risk should not be given bail. So, Mr. Speaker, the provinces really need to take a look at what is happening in their courtrooms.
The honourable member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is up 357%. Earlier this week, an Abbotsford man was gunned down because of extortion. Following his death, there was another extortion-related shooting in the area. Yesterday, a BC man in the Lower Mainland was shot up, another home was shot up. Thankfully, this time, no one was injured. But every neighborhood is terrified and innocent lives are on the line. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals eliminated mandatory minimums for extortion with a firearm. How many more lives must be taken by extortion before the Liberals put a minimum sentence back on extortion?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I remind my honourable colleague that extortion is illegal in Canada, and those who perpetrate it should be apprehended and punished to the full extent of the law. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member examines a section of the criminal code, he will see that there are mandatory minimums when it comes to certain offences committed with a firearm relating to extortion. Moreover, the maximum penalty is imprisonment for life. The rules reflect the seriousness with which the government takes extortion. We look forward to working with law enforcement to give them the tools they need to investigate and prevent these crimes from taking place in the first instance.
The honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's crime rate is up. Homicides up 28%. Violent crime is up 50%. And extortion's up 357%. This week, CSIS reported foreign governments are using organized criminal networks to target Canadians. Our own intelligence agency is sounding the alarm, but these Liberals are ignoring it. They voted against Conservative Bill C-381, which was jail, not bail, to repeat offenders. Will this Prime Minister finally take public safety seriously by adopting our Conservative plan to lock up these violent criminals?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Foreign interference and transnational repression are serious threats to Canadians and our democratic institutions. Through the Countering Foreign Interference Act, we have the modern tools needed to protect against it. We will train 1,000 new RCMP personnel that will help combat foreign interference and transnational repression. We'll remain vigilant to protect our security, to protect our sovereignty, and to protect our democracy, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
I don't know what's worse, the Minister for Crime Reduction blaming the provinces for enforcing their bad bail laws, or the Justice Minister making witty statements like extortion is illegal. Anyone with a 5th grade education or higher knows that. The problem is, Mr. Speaker, extortion is up 357%, and these violent extortionists then get out on bail almost the next day. That's the problem, not that extortion is illegal. Everyone knows that. The real question is this: are they actually going to do something? The Minister's saying we'll do something in the fall, so it's a summer of free crime. Canadians need changes now. Will they do it? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives talk a big game when it comes from a tough-on-crime agenda, but they failed to point out that one of their members earlier this week put a motion before the Justice Committee that would actually make it easier for those charged with intimate partner violence to be released on bail. We were elected on a campaign commitment to put forward rules that would strengthen the bail system, including specifically offenses tied to auto theft, to home invasion, human trafficking, and organized crime, and yes, to stiffen sentences for violent repeat offenders. If we could take the politics out of this issue, we would be happy to work together to advance public safety of this country. That's what Canadians demand. With or without the Conservatives, the Liberal government will deliver.
The Honourable Member for Annalay-Mercier.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday, June 21st is National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day in which Canadians celebrate the cultures, unique histories, and traditions of Indigenous peoples of Canada. Can the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations share more on the importance of National Indigenous Peoples Day?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for the question and thank him for his hard work in his riding, Honoré-Mercier. This Saturday, I'm looking forward to celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day in Yellowknife at the North Slave Métis Alliance. Asking for a long time, Mr. Speaker, this government got it done together with Labour, and we are very happy for this work with Canadian workers.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's #1 export is oil. It's a source of our prosperity and provides for health care, infrastructure, and good-paying jobs. Yet 10 years of Liberal anti-energy laws have kept pipelines from being built and kept us dependent upon the U.S. markets. Laws like C-69, no new pipelines, C-48, the shipping ban, the energy production cap, the industrial carbon tax. Energy companies won't build because of these laws. When will the Liberals finally end their war on Canadian energy and jobs?
Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, the problem with the Conservatives is half of them don't like Poilievre, the other half like Poilievre, and the other half can't count. The problem, Mr. Speaker, is they ought to look at Canada as a country with the third largest.
Can rewind a little bit if he wants.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is the third largest oil-producing country in the world. That is something that we should be proud of. And back from Saskatchewan, where I come from, we have a phrase: lead, follow, or get off the way. These guys can't lead. They're too arrogant to follow, so at least get off the way.
For Vancouver East. The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The Liberal and Conservative Coalition joined hands to fast-track Bill C-5 to bypass environmental reviews, ignore provincial jurisdictions, and trample on the constitutional rights of Indigenous peoples. Ontario chiefs are rejecting Bill C-5. UBCIC Chief Stuart Phillip called it a complete betrayal of Canada's commitments under the UN Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The Assembly unanimously condemned this bill and are calling for its immediate withdrawal. Chiefs across the country are saying nothing is off the table if the bill is passed. Will the minister do the right thing and withdraw Bill C-5?
Hear, hear.
I think she's one of the
Honourable
best.
Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll be looking for projects that have Indigenous support and
This
even
one
better,
didn't invite
Indigenous
any,
equity in the
any
projects.
of the chiefs
This
into the
legislation
meeting
is about
today.
supporting projects that are not
Check out
only
the
shovel-ready but
CBC did a
shovel-worthy.
good thing.
Projects that respect Indigenous knowledge and uphold Aboriginal and treaty rights. This legislation mandates that there must be meaningful consultation and accommodation with Indigenous rights holders during both the process of determining which projects are in the national interest and the development of rigorous conditions for each project. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So they just lowered down. If they don't speak to the
Indigenous
Native
rights
Americans,
holders
it
and
gets
civil
lowered.
society groups have been clear. Bill C-5 violates constitutional rights, escalates the climate crisis, and endangers workers' health and safety. But the Liberals and Conservatives are teaming up to pass this bill without proper consultations. The AFN, the ITK, and NAN have indicated that it is an ungracious invitation to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
This will stall our economy and the creation of good jobs. Will the Liberal government uphold its constitutional obligations and keep this bill out of the courts?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, these rights are affirmed by the Constitution, and the duty to consult and accommodate has been set out in a series of Supreme Court of Canada decisions.
That's right.
The One Economy Act, specifically in both the preamble and throughout the body of the legislation, requires the government to consult with Indigenous rights holders. Section 5.7, 7.2, 8.3. Again, we will be consulting with Indigenous right holders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They just get lowered on the list for not discussing it with the Native American groups or Indigenous groups or whatever you want to
birthday, a very important
CTV also had a pretty
for
good
our parliamentary family.
Sorry.
On the 23rd of June, it will be the 10 years since the official creation of the Parliamentary Protective Services.
Existence. The Parliamentary Protective Service has anticipated and adapted to emerging and growing threats, while always remaining true to its values of respect, professionalism, integrity, accountability, and leadership. The PPS values are the ones that keep us safe, and for that we are most grateful. For the last 10 years, day after day, these women and men in uniform have been keeping parliamentarians and Parliament safe, and by extension, keeping Canada's democracy strong. With smiles and hellos, they help us start and end each day. Bien sûr, le Parlement du Canada.
Of course, the Parliament of Canada is more than a workplace. It is the very cradle of Canadian democracy that attracts visitors the world over. These visitors are always welcomed by our uniformed colleagues with civility and courteousness, a very Canadian thing to do. A lot of us work here, but it's also the heart of democracy that belongs to all Canadians. As we all know, protecting democracy isn't easy.
To the attention of members, the presence in the gallery of many members of the Parliamentary Protective Service. Thank you for your long service, for your bravery, and for your achievement and commitment to PPS.
There they are. Oh, there's a lot of them. Wow. Are they there just for that, or do they always have? I don't think there's always that many. It's nice. They need to have them in there, especially with more working class folks watching in politics. Their job becomes much more important. I think they should be like standing there with their cameras outside as well. Just so people get their hint. We know what happened to that woman with this not too long ago. It's I think the speaker, this speaker has done a very good job. It's about security, and like the basis of democracy working is really
Thank you and congratulations for this important birthday. Happy 10th birthday.
Speaker, right, so there goes MP Jolie and her phone. MP Jolie and the phone. What would she hand it over if I, you know what I mean, if we had a better thing. Ooh, sorry, I'm kind of yawn. It was sneaking away. Hey, what are you doing there? Sneaking away. Look at that, sneaking away. I'm saying. It was pretty good showing. The NDP, I'm sorry, the Bloc did good today, but they didn't get the top star because I missed it, what he said, Blanchette, so I can't give him a star. He was the leader, and I should have been paying attention. It was costly, though, and I was, it was my mistake. I have to watch it later. The NDP got the stars today, with a little bit from the Conservatives. I'm not sure which one. Maybe they'll tell. But the two, Jenny Kwan and Leah Gazan. I wouldn't want to argue with Gazan either. She just seems too... she throws something at you. You know, if you're like, yeah, whatever, say something unsavory. You know what I mean? The next thing, you know, of course I kid. But definitely a free radical of politicians. So, yeah, there was pretty good questions. And I think that cutting the debate down and then saying, oh, later we're just going to lower the score. And they're like, well, what's the score thing? They're going to lower the score if there's less negotiations with Indigenous groups. And it's like they're basically saying, trust us, but, you know, there's like boil water advisories. Like, what city because, okay, for the rest of Canada, the city is in charge of clean water. What city do you know of? I've never even heard of it. We were talking about Walkerton like 20 years ago for like a week or 3 days. And that was a guy who made a mistake, and he even admitted it, made a mistake. What city has been under boil advisories? This has been decades. And so the municipalities can do it, but the federal government can't provide clean drinking water without boil advisory for decades? They can't provide a proper road? I know a lot of them are going to be very difficult, very cost ineffective. But you know, you can't do that. And then you got what Doug Ford said yesterday. I treat them like gold. Yeah, well, where's their roads? They don't have a road to get to their reserves. So you're not treating them like it. You treat other people like gold. You talk to them like they're gold, maybe. But treating and talking is two different things. Just because you answer the phone doesn't mean you're saying the right things. The placating is that. And it's obviously his real mentality he gave out. He says, when they come hat in hand with money, like, that's very derogatory. And I personally, I was not impressed with that. If you're a politician, you should at least know respect for the people that you're politicking. And he didn't. He just has he had obviously no respect for them. And saying you treat someone like gold, saying, you know, I treat you so well, you piece of crap. That's exactly what it is. Like, what? That you just countered your, you know, oxymoron, right? The little giant. So this, I think he deserves it. He should be good and apologize, but he's not going to, because I think the Liberals and the Ontario things, they believe that they have a mandate from the majority of the people to be assholes and steamroll everything else, and they're going to scapegoat Native American groups to say they're the ones that were the ones that are holding things back. That's what it seems like to be. But basically what there has to be is, you know, we made treaties and they have land. You have to do projects that they're going to be cool with, like water, hydro. Hydro has been a big boon. Mining, that there's been a lot of history in Canada. When the mines close, when the mine runs out, there's still the pollution there. You know, there's beaches I know, like not far from Niagara Falls. In Niagara Falls, the beloved Niagara Falls, which is a tourist trap industry, has beaches, beautiful beach. We're talking the best beach, actually. It's polluted, and there's warnings not to go there. It's polluted because of a factory. I don't want to get into the details. The factory closed down, and the mess is still there. So Native American groups, understandably so, are not happy about, okay, yeah, we'll get money, but we're going to have to live here. We can't just sell our property and move. We have to live on this reserve. So you have to go and not expect the people who you can't even deliver clean water to be all excited about a mine going in there that most likely will be 2 generations for it to, because the earth cleans itself, 2 generations for the earth to clean itself. Like Chernobyl, everyone expected Chernobyl to be really, really bad. Well, it's actually not as bad as they thought. It's been cleaning itself. The nuclear levels are a lot better. And it's only been 50 years. So it's only been 30 years, which is horrible and disgusting. But in 30 years, it's not, you can't live there. But it's not as bad as it was. So it'll take about a generation, maybe if you call it about 80 to 100 years, for Chernobyl to be cleaned up, and that's in Ukraine, by the way. So that's why I'm not such a super duper fan of nuclear. We know what happens, and now that they're putting it on commercial companies, abandoned wells. There's 120,000 abandoned wells in Alberta. Why? Well, the accountants get in there, and they decide, we're not going to make much money. Close the business down. And we have this law that, okay, you can close the business down, and they don't have to pay for the cleanup. It's left to the people living there. Well, if you live on a reserve, if it's on your reserve land, it's a different animal. They basically, so I understand their wariness. It needs to be, and of course these answers can be given because there have been natural resource projects in on reserves and stuff like that all across Canada, but they have to be spoken about. You can't just bull rush over these things, And other parts where there's no reserve there, okay, fine. But I personally believe that they've spent too much political will on expediting this process without proper consultation. And the thing is if you want to put, I believe, this is my opinion, you want to put horrible nickel mine or something on a reserve, it should be 60-40. 60 for the people that live in that reserve, and 10% of that 60% should be put into a bank just for cleanup, and also the company or the investors should be putting into a bank for cleanup. But we know that cleanup won't be enough, and never has been yet. So then there's the other 10%, and if it does. If they don't lie every other time, or if it comes to truth, well then great. Then they had all that money they banked for all of that time or invested or whatever, what have you. And that's to me what I think. But really, hydro dams, transmission lines, things that don't destroy the earth in a generation, because they have a different mentality. They live there for generational thinking. Their chiefs are different, and I believe it's a boon. And it sometimes makes slow growth because, fast money works, but fast money destroys the earth. We know this. This is common 101. So, yes, it becomes a big freaking headache if you want to make your fast money. I understand that. But I think it should be more projects, unless, of course, the group that is inviting it, right? But pushing this idea, they'll just go lower on the list. I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a rant. I'm kind of throwing multiple ideas at it. I believe the kings and chief, our king and our chief, should be listened to a little bit more than they had proven. I don't know about the chiefs, but I know the kings across the world had proven that some of them were not very good. And they got pushed so far to the back burner that people don't even think that they're worth listening to. And this is where I think is a error. When someone's job by birth is to think about generational, a lot of times they have very good insights and their ideas are good. Poundbury is a perfect example. And the only reason I came to this idea in the United Arab Emirates, because they're not a democracy. And their oil is given to the money to the people, and it's created a huge industry. And I was like, holy, this unbelievable stuff. So I really looked into it. I went into their museums and I checked out their thing. I spoke with the people who I believed were in the know, and I just have to tell you, I'm unbelievably impressed. And I'm a believer in democracy. I'm not saying we revert to that. But there was, I still am. It's just a wonder, that country. And their leaders have done a lot. And so from there, I looked at it. And King Charles III has this beautiful, wonderful idea, which can be put here. It's called Poundbury. Poundbury. It's a town. It's an example town. There's other places. I recommend the two of you that are watching here that you go Google it, Poundbury, and there's all the information on why it is, and I'm not going to give you that. You can go there to it, and it's a generational idea of how a town should be from our modern age, with sustainable things, like very beautiful, modern, brand new. The Poundbury's brand new, but it has like a historic look to it, but it's all new. And the artesian type of people that had to like do the exterior, the carpenters are very artesian type, but it's all sustainable materials and all this stuff. It's all modern thinking put into a new town, but of course it has the old ways were more sustainable, stone and wood forests that would produce enough wood to keep the town sustaining, as wood rods and stuff. So it's beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing. And this is something I think we should be listening a little bit more than listening to the New York. And I'm not dissing New York. I love the city. It's awesome. The New York mentality, the New York Wall Street mentality of fast money and fast cars and that, right? The Wall Street, right? The Wolf of Wall Street, all this stuff. This is, it creates a toxic environment, never mind a toxic earth, and that sometimes we got to listen to the people that are like, slow down, soldier. I know this because I was a runner for everything in emotion. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I don't know. I hope that the Liberals don't spend all of their political capital being silly and just pushing through, and then what are we going to call the military in if this? I think it's a very big mistake. And the thing is that I've said this, written my last points here, is that there's a lot of like great points that have been made, projects, and this Wab Kinew is number one. He was selling 500 megawatts of power to Minnesota. Well, he didn't cancel the deal. He let the deal go out, and he says, hey, that's available for transmission lines up north. Hey, they run on diesel generators to power their towns. We put transmission lines up there. You want to talk about nation building? That's it. Done. It'll cost. It'll save the environment for those environmental people who can all be happy, kumbaya or whatever. The people that own the towns will have cheaper power. Wab Kinew can be a leader for that area, you know what I mean? Thus tying the Manitoba to the Arctic in a very strong way. And Mark Carney can look like a nation builder. It's like it's every, and PJ over there, I'm sorry, PJ, the premier of Nunavut. I'm sorry, I have to have his name in front of me. I'm so difficult. I'm trying to learn it, but it's difficult. Their language it takes a lot of brain power, and I don't have that much. So and he'll be like the sun will shine on him every day for every one of those towns for the rest of his life, because listen, they have to get diesel. I've heard about this. I've read a story about it. It was like a diary kind of thing. The guy who did it, and he's like, there is overcast snow today. There will be no fuel. There is a storm coming in today. No fuel will be flying. The guy is like, his job was to keep the diesel generators running. Okay, and basically for like, I think it was almost 3 months, every day in his like log, it was like, I will not be able to get it. I'm concerned about the power. Like, and all of the extreme measures he had to do. The guy was like losing it on because he couldn't get a flight in. Right. It's unbelievable. This is the unbelievable, like, in the modern age. And when there's an answer, I think that's it. Churchill also is another center for a port. Okay, I'm not huge on oil. I think it's the power of 1911. I think it really is dead. They just don't know it yet. Like like me on this channel. So, but whatever. If investors want to invest, okay, that's fine. And then you have the provinces buy-in. Well, from Fort McMurray all the way straight, it's almost a straight line to Churchill. You could have a pipeline right to Churchill. Have a port out in the water, so the ships can go out there. You put a few $billion icebreaker, and we can move oil all day long to Europe, and for part of the year it'll be easy to send it over to the Asian side. Most likely it'll be America that buys it. But we could send it to Philippines. Philippines needs power, needs our gas big time. So and they pay a premium. So this could happen, right? And Saskatchewan, we know Premier Mo would be like happy. Wab Kinew said it's a good idea, and we Premier Smith, she would be doing the oil dance, and then at the same time, like Wab Kinew said, he said, well, we can send transmission lines to clean up the oil industries, because the way they get power is awful. You can get the hydropower out of Manitoba to there. It'd be beautiful. There you go. Forget about all the pipeline across Ontario through Quebec. That's not going to happen. Quebec will never let it happen. There's going to be no way that you're going to get a pipeline through Quebec. Ebby and the people of British Columbia, they don't want to see the oil lines spill. It's just silly to be talking to them. They don't want it. They don't want it. The people don't want it. The Premier don't want it. I think it's a bad idea. And there's also they're talking about sending another pipeline straight up to Grays Bay in Northwest Territories. I don't know how that's good. I personally just think put twin lines, 3 lines to the port of Churchill, or Nelson, Churchville, that area there. They talked about maybe Churchill will be the touristy area, and Nelson will be the area. Either way, they're close, and it's that whole area I believe should be the focus of development, and at the same time, it's a nation builder. It can weave the nation together at the same time that we're supporting Built in Canada. But this idea of mines and on reserved lands and then calling them hat in hand folk, I just. The Ring of Fire, I don't know. I thought it had a lot of buy-in. I thought the 2 reserves wanted it, but that road still isn't built. There's a road that was. I thought he did a good idea. He had consultations with two bands that are up there, so the road would go serendipitous and hit the 2 bands. But the road still isn't built. It's been years. I don't even think they're even working on it yet. It's just like something's going on, and I don't know what. I personally don't know what, but it's been like 20 years they've been talking about it. I don't believe it's ever going to happen. Not with the political we have now, and there's no when they don't tell the people on a regular basis, easily found information should be spoken about. Okay, this is what's happening. Give us a situation report, and then blame and shame the people who were holding it up. Because anyway, I'm not sure. I don't know everything. All I do is I have opinions. And like a peanut gallery, they crunch. Like, subscribe, have a good day.